And welcome everybody to another episode of the Smokin Tabacco Show. Big show this week. We have just so much going on. First of all, it's Smokin Tabacco's 1 year anniversary. So that's a huge deal, and we're really excited about that. And we'll touch on that after. I am joined once again by my friend, Mr. John Carney from La Flor Dominicana and Hacking Gourmet. And tonight, we have an amazing guest with us. We have the one and only, the man, the myth, and the legend, Nick Perdomo Jr. from Perdomo Cigars. Nick, thank you for coming on the show with us. We're so excited. How you guys doing? Nick, how you doing?
We're doing great. Thank you, Matthew. It's great being able to be with you and John tonight. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. John, how's it going over there?
Nick, I can tell you that Matthew's very excited because normally he lets me say something after he gets the introduction before we introduce the guest, and he just went right into it. So he's establishing his dominance. No, I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to tonight. I traditionally I'm all dressed up. I wore some of my cigar industry garb that I haven't put on for 6 months. It still fits, which is awesome. So that's a good thing. And I lit up prior to the show. Normally, I smoke LFD on the show, but tonight we have our special guest that we're very fortunate to have. I'm smoking Perdomo tonight. So I lit up the 10th anniversary Sun Grown, the one with the red band there. This is the second one that I've had. So I lit up the Robusto size on that, and then I'm going to back it up with the Perdomo 10th anniversary Maduro. So I've got the Maduro that I'm going to light up after. I haven't smoked the Maduro yet, so I saved that for after. But yeah, doing great. Big day. Yeah. Glad to smoke it. You know what's interesting, Nick? For me, as you know, you smoke mostly Perdomo, right? So it's fun to smoke other cigars because your palate's like completely clean from that. So it's refreshing. So it's very nice. I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm a big box press fan too. So this is right up my alley.
Well, I'm glad. Thanks. I'm joining you right now with the Maduro 10th, the new Maduro 10th anniversary. So we'll catch up here pretty soon. And I do try to smoke everybody's cigars. A lot of guys say they don't, but I think it's important to try everything.
I think that's also, that's good. It's nice to, know your own brand, but it's also nice to know what other brands are out there, what other people are making, what they're growing, what their flavor profiles are like. It's nice, especially for someone like yourself, and even for John. Being an executive with a company, it's nice to know what else is on the market, and you're running your company, and you can kind of see what you're going up against on the market. So I think it's totally great if you're in the industry and you're with one brand, you own a brand, and you're not smoking other people's brands. I think you're doing yourself a disservice, because it's nice to know like what else is out there. But tonight I am actually smoking the Habano Sun-Grown Gordo, and I actually don't normally smoke the Gordo. I normally will do the Robusto or the standard Toro, but this is a 60 ring, I believe, Nick.
Yeah, 6x60.
Yeah, I don't normally do the 60 ring, but I have to say I really enjoy this.
Well, good. I never thought it would sell like it did. Now we have 36 pairs of rollers in our factory. That's the lead just makes the 60 ring gauge. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember when 60 ring gauge was crazy? If you were to come out with it, everybody's like, "What are you thinking? Nobody's going to buy it. It's Robusto. Toro's the biggest size. Churchill used to be a massive cigar. So yeah, 60 ring gauge is just crazy. And then the extreme size is even bigger. I'm sure you may have considered sometime venturing into maybe even bigger ring gauges.
Well, we made a brand called Immenso in the mid '90s that were 70 ring gauge. We had a 5 and a 6 and a 7x70, but I tell you, some things happen in the future. You never know what might come out. You really work with your consumers and seeing what they like. But look at these 70 ring gauges. I heard it's still a pretty big market right now.
So you had that out in the '90s. You were essentially ahead of the time on it.
Yeah, I mean, I did a Menso in the mid '90s. Box press cigars in the latter part of the '90s. We came out with a brand called Perdomo Reserve Champagne, where we used a Connecticut shade wrapper with Nicaraguan fillers. And back in those days, everybody was using Dominican fillers and Indonesian binders and Connecticut wrappers, or like Macanudo with a Mexican binder. Everybody said you'd never be able to make a Connecticut wrapped cigar with Nicaraguan fillers. And 20 years later, Perdomo Reserve 10th anniversary is our number one selling brand. And so things really change in the cigar industry a lot of times.
Now I have to say, and everyone who knows me knows that I've always said Perdomo is one of my favorite brands. It's a brand that I smoke all the time. And when people ask me, every time I've reviewed a Perdomo cigar or if someone asks me my opinion, the first thing I always say is the sun grown. The sun grown is my favorite. And it's not just because Nick's on the show. You can go back. I've said this hundreds of times on all kind of platforms. Nick Perdomo's sun-grown cigars are my absolute favorite. I've smoked a lot of different sun-grown cigars, but Nick, every single time, you are the benchmark that I compare sun-grown cigars to. I don't know what it is, but I love it. They're perfect every time. It doesn't even matter which one it is. It could be the Habano, it could be the 20th anniversary. The ESV is one of my favorites. I just find all your sun-grown are just amazing. It's probably the most that I smoke from your collection is anything sun grown. I do smoke the Connecticut's and then the Maduros as well, but the sun growns they're spot on every time.
Well, thanks very much. We have some really good lands here in Nicaragua, in a valley called the Jalapa Valley, where we grow most of our wrappers, and they just produce a really sweet flavor that's got spice and great combustibility, and it's one of the blessings to be able to grow tobacco in Nicaragua.
So one of the lines that you have in your collection that I actually really enjoy was the Champagne series, and I still smoke a lot of the Connecticut Champagne, and I know that you have discontinued the Noir and the Sun-Grown. You've replaced that with that new the 10th anniversary reserve that it just came out. Tell us a little bit about that. What is behind the change of that? What made you want to swap those out and kind of switch up the line a little bit?
Well, the Noir and the Sun Grown have been out on the market for 17 years. I thought they were a little long in the tooth with the packaging. And this was a project that we started it was about 32 months ago. And what I wanted to do was come out with a reblended cigar. And Arthur Kemper, our vice president, came out with some incredible packaging like he always does. And I wanted to make a cigar that had a lot of body, but I wanted to put more filler tobaccos from the Jalapa Valley, which are known to be sweet. They're very sweet aromatic tobaccos, and mineral contents up in the valley there are really quite powerful. It produces that type of tobacco, and I wanted to come up something with a solid tobacco core. We've had this tobacco, a lot of these tobaccos have been, in our warehouses sitting there, and I wanted to do something with it, and we came out with it. We were actually supposed to have this cigar out in February. Our packaging people in Holland were a little bit behind, and COVID hit, and we ended up having to wait to launch the brand a month ago. And it's as crazy as it sounds, it's been the biggest launch we've ever had in the history of the company. Everybody said, nobody should wait in line to give me their money. I don't like to have back order products, but it's the first time literally in 11 years that we've had actually some back orders on the new products. And it's just because you can only forecast so good. Nelson Cube is the head of our operations, actually sitting to the left of me here. He's the one who makes sure that the factory gets the cigars as quick as we need. He's kind of got a really tough job, because if he sends too much, I get pissed. If he sends too little, I get pissed. So he usually does a really great job, but the increases were crazy. And I'm sure John can echo, since COVID, the business has been through the roof. One thing that this virus has done, it's made more people drink and smoke cigars, and it's been crazy. And I think the industry as a whole has been very healthy. But we're really excited about these two brands. We're bringing a container every week to Miami, and it doesn't last. 4 or 5 days, they're gone, right? Yeah, they last about a week in the warehouses till we get new containers. So we're very blessed and very pleased at the sales.
So I would say that you're probably top 5 easily cigar manufacturers domestically here in the United States, potentially in the world, in my opinion, especially in terms when you put in recognition and things. So during this challenging time, so companies like us that are significantly smaller at LFD, and then you look at the boutique brands that are out there that are challenged by being in a line of waiting for other brands to be made that maybe their manufacturer makes. How do you see yourself positioned in this current environment? Because for us, I can't make enough cigars, and we're not going to make enough cigars. That's the setting. The operation's very different. But how do you see yourself with that? Because I think this is a huge opportunity, where you saw just recently that Scandinavian Tobacco Group reported record-breaking Q2 numbers. And there's going to be some shortage there whenever, and there's talks about shortage. But do you see this as an opportunity for a company like you to continue to increase its platform and its and your platform and your position in humidors and especially in your size in the premium cigar world? Because this looks like a great opportunity for a company like yours.
You're spot on, John. It's a fantastic opportunity. One thing that we have is we have a tremendous amount of well-aged fillers, binders, and wrappers. A lot of people don't have today, as you know. And we're also chock full with great Maduro wrappers, and there's a big shortage of dark air-cured wrappers right now. And I think it's the perfect time for us to continue growing. Just like Scandinavian, we have the possibility of this month eclipsing all of 2019, which was a record year for us. It's crazy what's happened. I always get CFOs always say that I have too much inventory, and our bonded warehouses are packed with cigars here in Miami, and now they're scarce. So we made good decisions. 18 months ago, I opened up another factory in the center of Esteli just to have products in aging, and now we're starting to actually use the cigars from Factory 2. And I think it is a great opportunity. And John, since you're an Alabama fan like I am, you can always
Roll Tide.
Okay.
Well, it's funny, and we talked about this previous to the show starting. Nick had asked me, he said, "Hey, is the A on your hat for Alabama?" I'm like, "Roll Tide." Yeah, I'm a huge Alabama fan. Grew up that way, and I told the cool stories that I was in the stands they have a cigar weekend there, essentially called the Cigar Game. And for me, it's like the cigar Super Bowl. There's nothing like it, and I'm glad that only my company and your company know about it because it's a mecca. So I think we've got that cornered. But I'm in the stands, and they go to do the national anthem. This must have been 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and it says now to direct our national anthem, Nick Perdomo. And I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me! I'm like, this is incredible. Sit and watch you conduct the national anthem. It was a really special moment.
Oh yeah, being former military, it was definitely some on my bucket list. And look, I'm blessed being Natalie Perdomo's father, who's a graduate at the University of Alabama. So I think Natalie helped assist that quite a bit. So thanks for that, John. That was fantastic. It really was.
It would have made it better as if they had a flyover from like the Blue Angels or something.
Well, it's funny you say that. The first year I did it, we did it for the LSU game. And as soon as I did, I put my arms up in the air. I was just so proud. And a flight of 4 F-16 flew right over the top of the stadium. I mean, it was like rumbling. It was crazy. So I've been blessed enough that I've gotten to do it twice. And man, what a special thing to be able to do.
That is a really cool story, and it's something that I got to check out myself. I didn't know that they had a whole cigar week there. But Nick, so you mentioned you were in the military. What branch of the military were you in?
I was in the United States Navy in the early '80s. I was an air traffic controller. I went in a great time. I went in when President Reagan got elected, and the military was getting to be at its strongest from a weak standpoint. So it was a great time of year to be to service your country during that time.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's I mean, I knew you were in the military, but I didn't know you were in the Navy and you were in air traffic control. That's really awesome, and we thank you for your service too as well. We appreciate that, and we also thank you for your service in the cigar industry. I just wanted to throw that out there too. Nick, one of the things that a lot of people know about you, when they think Perdomo, not just the cigars, but you are also known for your factory tour. It's something that I am in the process of trying to set up myself. COVID-19 stuff pending. As soon as it is safe to do so, I'm going to come down and visit you guys as well, and I'm really excited about that. But obviously down in Nicaragua, you have this beautiful setup, factory. You have, and you're very vertically integrated. You have all of the plants and the farms, and you have the boxing, and you have your own cellophane machine. You make your own cellophane for the cigars. Someone like yourself, you started small, you built that empire that you have. What would you say out of everything you've done in the industry and everything you've done with Perdomo? What would you say is your most proudest moment in company history?
I think the proudest thing that I've had with the company is my greatest asset, which has been the great workforce I've had that have been loyal to me. The average worker, and I've said this many times, has been with the company for 19.6 years. people stay with the company. I like the longevity, and I'm blessed that I'm able to have that. And vertical integration is super important. It's something I started in 1998. I was just getting tired. There's an old Italian saying, you buy the clam, but you get the can. And today we're so vertical. We have our own genetic department. We have our own meteorological department. We even make our own staples. We literally do everything in-house. We mix our own emulsions and colors and paints and mill all our own wood. And when people come to visit, they see all that. And I think it's important. And the reason I did it is just so I could have total control. And when my father was alive, we just thought it was the best thing to do, just to be able to control it, everything. The only thing that we purchase outside is we have a grower, David Perez, who's been a friend of our family for over 30 years, and he's still our grower of Connecticut seed wrappers in Ecuador.
Wow. Yeah, I mean that's amazing. Getting to know, the Perdomo story, and it's amazing, and you guys have such an amazing product, and your quality control is also amazing too. Now all of your cigars are draw tested at the factory. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like what goes into that process?
Can I interrupt real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure.
So how do you make we'll go to the draw thing's very impressive. I can't get over the staples. So it's like how and why on the staples?
Because we use really heavy brass staples to be able to hold the weight of the cartons when we pack boxes, and when we would buy these staple machines, they couldn't be able to handle the amount of weight. So we actually take rivets of brass and we cut them on a machine, and we actually make our own staples and staple our boxes.
That's awesome. I can't get the staples to hold my boxes together. Screw them. I'm going to make my own.
Yeah.
I have a contraption where I can actually grade seed. You'd have to come down and see it, John, but I think you'd find it interesting. I just think that if you control it all, and I was blessed that my dad, with his experience selling tobacco and business, taught me a lot of things. And we can even pelletize droplets of water with the exact amount of algicide, fungicide, and fertilizer, and drop the actual droplet into the root base of a plant. And we have one farm that has over 37 million plants. It's named after my daughter, Natalie. We have 66 different fertilizations, and we have one guy that controls it with a turn of a knob and a computer. And this was research that was done through a company that we deal with in Israel. And the Israelis are the best because they don't have any water, so they know how to conserve it. And this year alone, just on our Natalie farm, we saved over 591,000 gallons of water, and the tobacco got the water it needed. So it was good. We grow a lot of tobacco, as a lot of people know, and it's important for us to conserve water because sometimes we don't get a good rainy season, unlike this year where we got a ton of it. And I like all the different aspects of it, but I think the thing I'm most proudest of is our workforce. I know it sounds probably elementary and crazy, but those are the guys that bring you to the dance, and I'm proud that we really have a phenomenal workforce.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying. From what I've heard about Perdomo, it sounds like you also have just such an amazing, loyal workforce. You treat them well, and they treat you well. You hear, in any industry, you hear the stories of companies, and they treat their employees poorly, they get poor performance, and then they wonder why. And it's like, well, you get what you put in. You give to them, they give back, and that's really important. And I think that also it contributes to not only your reputation as a big brand, a brand that has an amazing quality control, but it helps you. It helps you grow your business faster, better, bigger, because you have those people behind you that are the driving force underneath. You have ideas, you have a product plan, and you have your staff that come together and they put that together. That's what you need. I mean, that's how you get it off the ground. But yeah, I wanted to go back to the rolling the question. So on your rolling factory, all your cigars are rolled, and then they're all draw tested. So I was going to have you kind of explain that a little bit in terms of what your method is for draw testing all of your cigars.
We have a draw testing station. I'll explain what draw testing is here in a second. We can actually draw test 19 cigars per second. And what we do is once the cigars are bunched, what we do is we open up the bunch to make sure that's part of quality control, to make sure the tobaccos are in their proper position. Then we press that cigar for 15 minutes so it has its form. And we actually have guys with dollies who will actually pick up the press molds from the rollers. They go into the draw testing station. It works on drop pressure, kind of like a a sinker when you're fishing, where the sinker goes down. And what you do is you actually take the cigar and you put it in the tube, you press a pedal, and it has the bounce of pressure per pound, per square pound on that particular cigar. And depending on the size of the cigar, whether it be a Robusto, a Toro, Churchill, is going to depend on how much drop pressure the cigar needs. The reason that I draw test all the cigars is because I think if a cigar doesn't draw, it shouldn't be put in a box. And I work together with this company in Atlanta, and most people draw test about 10% of their production. I understand it because it's very hard, because most people don't have enough press molds. And the way we do it, and this is no secret, is we work off the calendar year. The rollers we only have about a month of extra press molds for future growth. So you would run out, you wouldn't be able to do it. So what we do is we take the amount of what they call holidays or days off. And in December, we close the last 12 days and we just bring the bunchers in. And what we do is we work on an evolution. And by the time we get to the next December, we're 12 days ahead in January. We're 10 days ahead in February. Then we go 7 days in March. And by the time we get to December, we're 1 day ahead. And what we've been able to do now with this dolly system is, as soon as the rollers are done with their 10 press molds, they get 10 more. As they're bunching, their cigars are being draw tested. And what we do is, if you lift any wrapper of our cigar, you'll see there's a black mark. It's an alcohol-based pencil. That's used to guarantee that every cigar was draw tested. And what we do is, if a cigar doesn't draw, we bring the guy back and we explain to him his error, and we allow him to remake the cigar. We actually dismantle the cigar, and the only thing that we can't recoup is the lijera, which are the tobaccos in the middle, because they're crushed under the bunch. So what we do is we deduct depending on the blend, between 7 and 10% of their pay, but we give them another opportunity to make the cigar. And what it does is entices the cigar roller to do a better job. And what we do is we don't move them from any position. So basically, if you make Coronas, you make them for the rest of your life. And what we do is, every year, if you hit what we call our A scale, what we do is we move you up into the Robusto pay grade. In other words, we have guys that make Coronas that are making just as much money on a torpedo platform. The reason is why punish a guy and change him if he's got total control of his hands? So what that does is that guarantees a lot of quality, and we draw in excess of 50,000 cigars a day. And it's very important for us, and we rarely get any complaints because of it. Nothing's more frustrating than a cigar that doesn't draw.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been known to complain about is anytime I have a cigar that doesn't draw well. And I know there's people out there that are okay smoking a tighter cigar. For me, there's been so many cigars where if it's just not loose enough on the draw, I just won't smoke it. It's just not for me. You know, it's not that I'm not picky, but I like a certain experience when I smoke a cigar, and that's one of the things about Perdomo too, that I know when I grab a Perdomo cigar, I know what I'm in for. I know it's going to draw test well. I know it's going to have a well-balanced flavor. I know it's going to have great construction. I don't have anything to worry about. I know every time I grab one, I know what I'm in for. I'm in for an easy, enjoyable experience, and that's and that's a reputation that you build. And I think that your method with, sorry, there's something over here on me. I think your method that you have with the way you reward your staff in the factory is impressive, and I think it's great. And I like how, you explained where, if a cigar does fail, you bring that roller in, you go over that with him. But, as much as, he may get punished if, you have to, like, reduce the pay, I think is what you said on certain cigars. You give him another chance to roll it again, and you give him the incentive. You give them the incentive to roll a lot of cigars, but also make sure you roll them right. So that way they're running at the most efficient capability that they have, which is good for them and it's good for you. It's a win-win situation, and I think that's a great model that you have.
Yeah, with the amount of production we have, we average about 0.8% daily of cigars that don't draw. But you look at that and you say, well, that's 37 cigars that never went into a box of cigars that a consumer would get. So to me, even though it's a minuscule amount of numbers, I don't want any of those cigars to get out into the market, because it's very frustrating. It takes 10 years to get a customer. It takes 3 seconds to lose one. And at my time, I don't want to lose any customers. I don't advertise the Cigar Aficionado, and John had brought up a point earlier. They came out with the top 10 best-selling cigars, and we came in, number 2 or number 3, whatever. And I was very proud of that. And look, if you would have told me 10 years ago that I would be in the top 100, I would kiss your ass, John, and give you 20 minutes to start everybody on the Palmetto Expressway to watch. I never thought I would be able to do that. So what a blessing for us and for our company. And I'm really proud of our guys. They do a phenomenal job.
So with the growth of Nicaragua, particularly in the last 10 years, and I would say probably 15 years, it's been very substantial with your rolling team, and especially with the growth that you've had in that period of time as well, which has been mostly ascension from the mid-90s. How have you combated turnover from your rollers potentially jumping to other factories or coming back, or vice versa? That's something that's a concern. Is there might be, hey, I'm going to go here because there's this hot factory. For example, there's a very large name in the business opening up in Nicaragua. How do you keep Perdomo as the marquee place for those people to work?
I think one, if you go to our factory, it's almost antiseptic. It's very clean. We have excellent light, which is very important because you've been to factories that are dingy. We treat our people with a great amount of respect. And I think when you have a team that averages almost 20 years with your company, I don't think they really want to go anywhere because they're comfortable. And what we've started doing now is, because our guys are getting older in the tooth, we're building training courses, and a lot of the guys who are training are family members of our first generation who've worked with the company since 1995. So we've been able to continue the growth. And like I said earlier, we opened up another facility. It's small. I mean, I think we're doing 17,000 cigars a day, but that's pretty good. I mean, if you take 17,000 cigars in 5 days, you're producing, 3.5 million cigars in a year on a 6-day work period. So it's good for us, and we continue growing. I've always made too many cigars. That's what I've always been complaining about. But I always said a finished cigar was better than having money in a bank making 1.5%, and it's worked out good for us.
Nick, one of the things that I've heard about your factory down in Nicaragua from people who have visited is that one of their favorite parts about the tour was the fact that you have your own seed room where you keep all of your seeds. I don't know much about that. Could you tell us a little bit about your seed storage and what it is you keep in there?
Well, to me, the most important thing about making a cigar, and a lot of people will think I'm crazy, but I know I'm right, is the seed. The seed is the most influential and the most important thing to be able to make a good product. It's no different than a cook. If you don't have the right ingredients, the food is never going to be good, no matter how much you cook or know how to cook. And what we do is we do a lot of seed evaluation because we have a genetic department. And what we want to do is we want to use the most sound seed, the most reputable seed, and whether it be a hybrid that we've developed or some of our Corojo seeds or Criollo seeds, we want to make sure that those seeds are perfect before they go into the ground. And we're big sticklers not only with our seed, but we grow everything, whether it be filler, binder, and wrapper for germination in greenhouses. And once they germinate in 45 days, that's when we bring them out. We even have our own worm farms where we produce our own organic material together with a big company we deal with in Canada. So the company, with vertical integration, if you have any weak links, it doesn't matter because you're gonna have ruination if you don't do everything right from A to Z. So we're pretty anal with water, with seeds, with a lot of things a lot of people don't think is very important, but I promise you at the end it really makes a difference in the product.
Yeah, with all of the, the reading on the industry and the learning of the industry that I've done on my own, you know, I've I haven't heard a lot of, and there's a lot of manufacturers out there, and a lot of people, have their own farms and all that too. But I've never heard really anyone really talk so much about the seeds, and I think you're right. It's such an important process. I mean, it's the beginning. I mean, it's.
Yeah, we even have a YouTube channel of Perdomo Cigars where not only am I trying to teach how you get the most out of a cigar, whether it be cutting or lighting a cigar, but also all the agronomy and everything it takes to making a great cigar. And the farming aspect is definitely extremely important in making a fantastic cigar.
Do you prefer, Nick, a dry season or do you prefer a wet season?
When we're growing, we actually grow in drought, John. We grow in the months of September and we finish in the second week of May. And Nicaragua means never without water. It's an actual Indian word. And because we don't depend on rainwater, what we do in the old days, we would flood underground. But now we have a drip system that we work together with this Israeli company that I mentioned. We have them in all our farms and basically work on a drip system. I actually don't want any water touching the leaves because it washes the resins and grease. And I think that's what makes Nicaragua so unique that you don't have to depend on rainwater like you have to do with a lot of countries. And, the volcanic grounds that have no lead in them is another big blessing that we have. And I remember in the 90s, a guy said, I know you. Where do you make your cigars? I said, I make them in Nicaragua. He said, what is that? I said, you'll know before long what Nicaragua is. And, it's a special country and, in my personal opinion, produces some of the greatest tobacco in the world, bar none.
I think right now Nicaragua itself is producing some of the best cigars in the world, and we had this conversation several times, and you always get the people who ask the biggest question: Cuban cigars, Cuban cigars, Cuban cigars, and it's like, yeah, Cuban cigars are a thing. Obviously, they're not here in the United States, and we were talking about this on the Ashholes podcast this week, and I think Nicaragua is really the powerhouse for cigars right now, even more so than the Dominican Republic. I think there was a period where everything switched to the Dominican, and then all of a sudden Nicaragua came in and is now just taken right over. And I will say a lot of the cigars, I mean, not just Perdomo, I smoke a lot of different cigars, but a lot of my favorite cigars are all Nicaraguan cigars. I just find them to be way more flavorful, just a lot more body to them, a lot more different complexity on the flavors. And I just find Dominican cigars are good, but I just find Dominicans can be just very different. And there's always a richness to a Nicaraguan cigar, and they just as I said, their popularity is just going through the roof, and especially with someone like you guys, Padron's another one. With the Nicaraguan cigars, you see a lot of those companies too, just really thriving.
Well,
with
you
that
look at
tobacco.
the Dominican Republic, it was culturally a very mild tobacco growing country. So you have a dry season in the Dominican Republic. Macanudo doesn't work. Romeo and Julieta doesn't work. Because when you have a drier season, you have smaller plants, you have smaller leaves that are stronger, that are a little bit more nicotine to them naturally. So, you look at a country that was traditionally a mild growing country, whereas Nicaragua was kind of a clean palate in the past. So it started off there, and it happened to be an environment that was really conducive to full, rich tobaccos.
No, you're right.
Yeah, the one of the things that I wanted to ask Nick about was it's kind of an interesting question, and I really wanted to get his opinion on this because I feel like I know the answer, but I'm not going to say. So, Nick, in the industry, obviously there's a lot of brands out there who, and LFD is kind of one of them. But there's brands out there that offer a lot of cigars that are very exclusive, very limited, without mentioning too many names. Um, like Opus X is one of them, or even John has the Salomon Unicos, the Andalusian Bulls, those really limited cigars. And I could be wrong here, but I don't think I've seen anything like that from Perdomo. What is your stance on those really limited production products?
I don't like to limit anything to any consumer. I want them to enjoy the product. I mean, we have a brand called Estate Selection Vintage. It's very, very limited because we utilize the top 3% of our crops. We only have less than 200 stores in the country that have them, but we're going to be able to outfit those stores. So it's just a unique product that we have. I want consumers to be able to have the cigars consistently when they enjoy them. I think that's why we've had brands like Perdomo Reserve Champagne. It's going to celebrate its 21st year. Perdomo Habano, 19 years. Lot 23, 21 years. Fresco, 22 years. I could go on and on. Our youngest brand right now, outside of the new 10th anniversary, which, by the way, is a grandfather product that was approved by the FDA, as all our brands have been that we have on the market, is our 20th anniversary, which is going to complete its 9th year. And I just don't believe in throwing stuff across the wall and hoping it sticks. I want brands to have consistency, and we have a strategy where those brands should be able to sell year in and year out. And if people enjoy them, I want them to enjoy them forever. I was just talking to a guy just before I got on the show from Houston who said, my son, when he was born, I bought a box of Perdomo Reserve Champagne. My son will be getting married next month, and I'm going to buy him a box of Perdomo Reserve Champagne for his wedding. And I mean, it made the hair stand on my arms, and it just shows the consistency of the product, and that's what we really want to have. So I get the limited stuff with a lot of the guys. I have respect for all the manufacturers out there. It's something we don't do much. A lot of times when we run out, like, people say, why don't you make this brand? I always say, well, it was Estate Selection Vintage 1995. We don't have any more of that tobacco. That's why we don't have it. It's not to piss you off.
Yeah.
It's just, sometimes cycles run, but when you have a blend and you have different lot numbers where you grow tobacco, you can build a lot of consistency because you can develop the lands the way you want them, and you can grow as much tobacco as you want on those lands. And if you grow a lot more than what you need, you can hold those tobaccos and have a consistency in its dosage or blend. And I think that's been our secret since we started growing tobacco in Nicaragua in 1998. So, hey, listen, we're going on almost 23 years or 22 years growing tobacco in Nicaragua, and I'm learning every day, but we keep getting better and better. And our team down there does a wonderful job on the agronomy side and also the farming side.
Yeah.
Now, one of your more famous limited editions, however, was the edition de Silvia.
Yes.
I believe that was about, was that 10 years ago now, or was there other releases of that product?
No, we started that release a year after my grandfather died in 2005. So the brand's been out 16 years. We've had it. And we actually have over 213,000 of those cigars in our aging room. The reason we haven't brought them out is because we're repackaging it. And our guys in Holland are way behind because of COVID. And we're waiting for the finished artwork so we can bring these cigars out. And we're going to bring them back out again. And we're going to continue making cigars. It's not going to be a big, it's maybe 100,000 cigars a year. We want to keep the consistent brand. That brand's very important to me because that was a brand that was named after my grandfather, Silvio Perdomo, and that's why it has a certain size it has, because it was a lot of the stuff that my grandfather liked to smoke. And it's a great brand, but you're right, John. That was pretty limited. But we were going to, it was like a yearly release that we'd have, and I try to stay away from limited stuff. A lot of times it is limited, and then a lot of times with some of these guys, and I'm certainly not talking about your company or or Carlos Fuentes' company, but a lot of these guys buy cigars and they're limited to how much money they can spend to buy cigars, and then they tell you they're limited and they charge these guys $12 and $15. Which I have a big problem with. I think it's very disingenuous. And listen, one of the things I'm proud of, and Lito Gomez can say the same thing, we always made our cigars. We didn't buy cigars from people and tell everybody we were cigar makers and charge exuberant prices and tell everybody it's limited. We made our cigars and we worked hard and, worked in the factories and left our wives for long periods of times and built our companies through a lot of sweat and a lot of hard work.
Yeah, it's one of the ones that always grinds my gears, and it probably does you internally too. When you go to multi-vendor events and they thank all the manufacturers for being there, and you look around the room and you're like, there's three of us. And I'm an executive for a company, but I take it personal. I'm sitting there and I always say to one of my reps, I'm like, there's like three manufacturers here. I'm going, those other 10 brand owners, I go represent one of these other manufacturers that are here as well. So it always grinds my gears internally. And I don't throw shade on it, but internally I'm always like, you got to be kidding me right now.
I agree with you 100%. Look, I'm a capitalist. I think everybody, I was the boutique guy if there ever was one. I started out of a garage on Lake Candlewood Court in Miami Lake, so I know what it is. My dad said you live in the greatest country in the world. If you work hard, you can take anything you want. But my starts were meager, but even though it was in my garage, the cigars were being made by our people, and it wasn't, I was buying, cigars from people and putting my bands on them and, doing things like that. So I agree with you totally, John.
Now, Nick, I remember hearing this story, or parts of this story. I don't think I got the whole thing. You were actually on the Cigar Authority a few months back when the Firecracker was released, and you're going to be on there. I think again next week. Is that correct?
Yes, September 12th. Yes.
Up in well, I'll have to come see you next weekend. But
No, I'll actually be in Little Rock, Arkansas, on a lake with some friends who own a cigar store there, and but I told Dave that they have internet on the boat, so I'd be doing the Cigar Authority from Arkansas. But
remotely.
Remotely, yeah. I have events going on all next week in the Arkansas area, and I've been trying to get out on the road as much as I can, and things have been good, and that's where I got to meet you when we were doing these big events over at Two Guys Smoke Shop. So it's nice to be able to go out and see the consumers. But I'm sorry, what was your story?
Oh no, that's all good stuff. No, I was going to ask you. So it was it, and forgive me if I have this wrong. Was it your father or your grandfather who came here from Cuba? Is that the story?
My father and my grandfather came from Cuba. My father came first, and he actually brought my grandfather, who at the time was a political prisoner for 14 years in Cuba
Wow.
in one of their gulags. Yeah. So yeah.
That's crazy. And so you had mentioned before. So Perdomo Cigars. You started that with your father? Is that
No,
the
I actually started the company in August of 1992. I told my dad that, because it's all I ever heard of, and I loved cigars. And at the time, I was an air traffic controller. My dad said, "You're a moron. You got a great job. Why do you want to do that?" And I said, "Well, Dad, you said I live in the greatest country in the world. If I work hard, I can take anything you want." But I won. He said, "Well, yeah." So my first year, I sold under 10,000 cigars. I made 40 cents. We were working them out of our garage. And I would go up to Miami Tower and I'd rip the phone books up and I'd call cigar stores on my breaks. And we didn't even have money for boxes back then. We sold everything in bundles. And, I'd always say give a young guy a shot. And guys gave me a shot, including David Garofalo. I still have orders from him with triplicate form that my wife would write up. And we didn't have boxes back in those days. In the early 90s, I couldn't afford them. I remember my first box purchase was from a company here called Miami Box. I spent $473. I think I had $473 in the bank account. So you got to start somewhere. And
yeah.
everybody's businesses are meager when they start. They have to struggle. If anybody tells you they don't, they're lying to you. And I remember, in latter part of 1994, I called my dad and I said, "Dad, I sold 1 million cigars." And he said, "Well, maybe you're not so much of a moron." So that's kind of the start. And then in the summer of '95, my father didn't really like the retirement life, and he came on to work for us, and it was the greatest blessing because he was my hero, and we ended up working together for over 10 years together, and he's the one who was the catalyst for us to move to Esteli, Nicaragua in the mid 90s. And it was the greatest move we ever made. And when I first went to Nicaragua, you wouldn't believe how it was, but it's a different animal today.
Yeah, I remember when I saw you and your son Nicholas, when you guys were up here. I remember talking to Nicholas about how I mean I'm in a different industry, but I'm in an industry where I came in where my dad was pretty prominent in what he does, and I came into that industry as well, and I had the opportunity to start from the bottom and work my way up and learn the industry and work for my dad as well and have that father-son connection and, the bond, that you get from that. And I think it's really important that, not everybody gets to do that, and which is fine. Everyone kind of does their own thing, but for the people who have that family, that lineage where you follow along like that. I told Nicholas, I said it's really respectable, and I said I know that bond that you have with your dad because I have it too, and I think it's really important, and that's what's one of the best things, one of the proudest things of my life is the fact that I followed along behind my dad, and I followed in what he did and learned from him, and I'm starting to kind of grow my own success, learning a lot of the things that I learned from him. And it's funny. It's kind of I don't know. I get sentimental, and I'm a NASCAR fan, and there's this, and not a lot of people know this particular part of it is that I was always a fan of the Earnhardts, and obviously Dale Senior died at Daytona in 2001, but I remember going back and watching a lot of clips, and there's a clip where actually the next race at Daytona that year, Dale Jr. won the race, and I just remember the commentator saying, the lessons learned from his father. He was, he was able to use the lessons learned from his father to go and win that race, and I took a personal connection to that because it was like that's like what I do every day. I learn things from my father to benefit myself and grow myself in an industry. And I have so much respect for that. I just have to say, I think that's a huge deal. I think it's great. And you were on another show about a couple weeks ago, and I remember you were talking about it, and someone asked you a question about I can't remember what the question was. It was something about what I think someone asked you what your advice would be to anyone's building a business or whatever, and I think you had said one of the biggest things is having a strong family behind you. Because your family is all you got sometimes, and they're the people who are going to go to bat for you and be there for you and care for you, and that's one of the things about Perdomo is, and not even just Perdomo, a lot of these companies, whether it's the Gomez family, the Fuente family, the Padron family, the Perdomo family, this industry is such a family-driven business. It's a theme that I see. It's one of the things about the industry that I love the most is it's just such a family business. A lot of fathers and sons and grandfathers and sons and grandsons that follow that path and keep that legacy going, which I think is huge. Um, and so I think that's it's great that you're another one of those companies that has that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, you're spot on that. Look, my mother's 85, still works for the company, comes in every day. My wife Janine works for the company. Of course, my son Nicholas, my uncle retired at 87 and was working with the company. My dad unfortunately passed away, but my brother's a sales representative for us. And listen, the big thing, even more of a blessing, not only having a great family that supported me from day one, but also having employees that are like line extensions of your company. I could mention all my sales team. I could mention all the guys in Miami, my vice president Arthur Kemper. I mean, these are Nelson Cuba. These guys are like members of my family, and it's nice when everybody pulls the same way,
Mm.
and it's a big blessing. And I have to give a lot of credit to my wife Janine and my children who were there with me through thick and thin when I was traveling and washing my underwear out of a Motel 6 because I didn't have the money, and I would gorge myself for breakfast so I wouldn't have to eat for the rest of the day. Things that everybody's had to do when they start a business. And, you're as good as your employees and your family. And look, your wife could support you or she could abort you and
Yeah.
and not do the right thing and make your life miserable. And it's great that my wife supported me and my children always knew that dad was working. I wasn't at the bar getting drunk. I was working, but I'd always come back and catch every game. I wouldn't sleep a lot of times. I'd take the first crack in the morning, but I never missed any of my daughter's cheerleading or my son's baseball, football, or basketball games. It was, my family's very important to me. I know a lot of people know that, but it really is. But at the same token, you fall in love with your employees also. And look, I'm very lucky and very blessed in what I do. I really love what I do. I'm getting up there, and people are asking me when I'm going to stop. And I always say I really don't want to because I enjoy it just as much as I did when I was 27, 28 years old. And now I'm an old fart, but I still love it.
Yeah, my dad's like the same way. My dad is he's in his upper 50s, and I know he's not stopping anytime soon, and he could retire in a couple years. I know he won't. He can't give it up. I see him working till he drops dead. I just he's just one of those guys. He wants to work. He loves to work. That's what he does. He doesn't have hobbies. He doesn't go hang out at the bar. He's at work or he's at home, and that's it. That's what he does. So, and it's been a good model for me to learn from too. Um, Another question I wanted to ask you tonight is obviously there's been some news with the FDA ruling that came out a couple weeks ago. How does that change any of your
Well,
business plans going forward?
it never changes at all because we've been blessed that we have a portfolio the size of a big encyclopedia grandfather product, and we had sizes that we could SC if we wanted to. This is a good thing for some of the companies that maybe couldn't do it. As far as we're concerned, it's good news because it was stalled. It all depends a lot on this next election and who we have in the Congress and Senate to be able to continue this going. As all cigar makers and any business people, we want less regulation. And we want to be able to, we don't want the government to be our biggest adversary. I don't mind competing against any cigar company. That's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is when you have to compete against your own government. And I would just hope that Nancy Pelosi is not the next Speaker of the House in the next election. How about that?
Amen. She can stay in that hair salon, get her hair done every day of the week for all I care.
And maybe she could put her finger in the sink while the blow dryer is going on. Maybe the fall.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's something that's been talked about a lot. There's a lot of companies that, you know, like you said, there's companies out there who didn't have like the back catalog that you have, and there's companies that, were, I would say a little nervous there, and people who, maybe if, whether or not they were prepared or not for this. This definitely takes a little bit of a load off, but it doesn't mean that it's really gone forever. It's something that still, remember, it can come back at any time. And but I guess, yeah, for now, I've talked to some other people. They say, well, it's good for us right now. We've been able to to kind of change some of the things we were doing because we were kind of working around this. So, and that's good for them. But another, yeah, and we've had Glenn Loop on the show, Cigar Rights of America. We had Scott Pierce on the show, Premium Cigar Association. And it's another thing that we do talk about a lot is, as much as we have people like yourself and we have John and manufacturers and people, these political people too who are in the industry, they are just as important because I will say it and I say it again, they are the people who do go to bat for us. They're the people who, and they get together and they go to the courts and they they help, they stand up for what we believe in, this love of the cigar industry that we have. These are the people who are literally like on the front lines for us, going to bat, trying to show the difference between premium cigars and other tobacco products, like cigarettes and pipes and or what have you, and just show how stop. Why are you attacking us? It's a different product. It's a handmade product. So yeah, I wanted to bring that up. It's definitely important. I know you're obviously a big supporter of that. John and I, we've talked about it almost every week. It's huge. But another.
Well, for John and I, it's our livelihood. It's how we eat.
Yeah.
The guys get paid to defend us. We have to. We're really on the front lines because if it doesn't work, we don't have any work nor our families. So it's all important. But the guys who are really in the pit that are really fighting this are the actual guys who make cigars and guys who sell cigars and work for cigar companies because it's really our livelihood.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I was questioning if I was going to say it or not in my head. I was going to say sometimes those political people in the industry think they're a little bit too important.
You're right. You're right.
What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So, and one last question I really wanted to ask you before I think we're getting close to our hour mark, so we're going to be going towards our sports segment next. But before we get into that, other than everything we've talked about, with the current state of affairs in the world with the pandemic, it seems to me like Perdomo is still running pretty strong. But what challenges have you faced from this, if any, that have really set you back? I mean, I know you mentioned that you have had some back orders, but other than that, has there been any other major obstacles you've had to face?
I think the biggest obstacle we had to face were the months of March and April, where some of our sales team were really frustrated because everything was closed down, especially in very liberal states like Pennsylvania and Michigan and Ohio, where people couldn't work. And our guys are responsible and they wanted to work. But we had told them we're good stewards of our money and that they would be able to get paid regardless. And that had nothing to do with Triple P money. It had to do with the company being able to be able to honor, what they're doing because it's not their fault that this happened. And thankfully, in my state, we had a sane governor, and he started opening everything up. And like any virus, it ends up mutating. And I think in 10 years, we're going to start seeing that a lot of this stuff was very irresponsible, and a lot of people call it the election infection. And if that happens to be true, that's very sad because a lot of people lost their businesses. A lot of people went into deep depression, a lot of suicide and so on. But a lot of people during this pandemic smoked a lot of cigars and they got to spend a lot of time with their family. And I pray for a lot of them, especially a lot of people in different businesses who've been struggling, whether it be in gyms or restaurants and so on. We weren't really affected, but I know a lot of people were, and it was really sad in what I saw. And I'm glad things are opening up. And I hope for the best.
Yeah, I know it is interesting. You see, restaurants, gyms, and those industries collapse, and then you see industries, like the grocery stores and the big box stores obviously thrive because everyone was rushing out to buy supplies and stockpiling and stuff, and they had a good year. But the cigar industry was an interesting one because it was like you almost thought like, well, that's an industry where everyone's like, well, I'm not going to smoke cigars, and they're going to cut it off. And a lot of people I talk to, a lot. I mean, of course, there's shops and there's companies who have have problems and they've been hurting, but there's shops I talk to and they're up for the year and they're up all time. Or they're at least up the last couple of years. There's a almost I don't want to use the word boom, but it's almost been like a little boom in effect because I just from the people I've talked to, they've just been selling more cigars, and I think that it's a combination of there's people now they're home so they're smoking more, they're working from home and they're just going to smoke during the day. They need more cigars. It's interesting to me. But we've also been talking about the shortage of cigars that could be possibly coming. if not, that has already started. Is there going to be any kind of shortage from Perdomo, at least on a major scale, that you see coming, or do you think you guys are going to be able to kind of stick with that going forward?
We're going to have no shortage. Absolutely not. We're one of the blessings that we have is we have two aging rooms that have over 12.6 million finished cigars that have been in inventory for over 185 days, and we're going to be able to supplant and get our consumers and our retailers the cigars they need. With the shortages of dark air cured wrappers, they're not going to have to worry with that with Perdomo. We've had 7 fantastic crops. Our last crop was fantastic too. So we have a lot of well-aged dark air cured wrappers, a lot of great sun-grown wrappers, and we're hitting it all fours. And Nelson, just keep the containers coming, and we're going to make sure that our retailer shelves are full with our products. And look, we braced for this way before this pandemic. I've always been, like I said earlier, accused of having too many cigars and too much tobacco in stock. I think it was the greatest thing that we decided, because it was a team concept on that, and accountants are bean counters and they're wrong, and it's paid for us, and we're getting our retailers and our consumers their cigars, so they can be rest assured that we're going to continue shipping cigars. We're milling more wood than we've ever had for our box production, and we're growing. And we've gone from a container every other week to a container every single Monday coming in. So, and the great thing is we're not making cigars and putting them in boxes. We're putting cigars from aging rooms that have a minimum of 185 days, and we're making cigars for the latter part of 20 and 21, where we're working well ahead of the game. So. Our guys know what the hell they're doing, and they're doing it right.
Well, that's always
I
good to
think
hear.
one of the key things you've said a few times tonight, which has been, I believe, intentional, is you've mentioned air cured, which means to people watching and listening, air cured is the natural way of aging and fermenting tobacco. There's ways you can augment it and rush the process, which impact the quality. You've mentioned that a few times, so you're obviously very proud of it, and that's something that's going to be able to maintain the quality there, because there's certainly things that can do to rush the hands of time. And I've told people before, I'm like, if you go on a factory tour to somewhere, and you see a bunch of plastic bags covering tobacco, or you see some secret room or whatnot, that's a process where the hands of time are being rushed. And you've mentioned air cured several times, and I found that really interesting, because that's a great position to be in, and to think ahead to these challenging times where there's a shortage of Connecticut broadleaf everywhere. You're not experiencing that because you've been preparing ahead of time for this.
Yeah, and I don't use Connecticut broadleaf. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I like Cuban seed tobacco grown in the Jalapa Valley, and we have a tremendous amount of that, and we're blessed that we're able to do that. So my Alabama Tide brother is spot on that one too. And you shouldn't paint wrappers. You shouldn't rush things. The thing that I'm most worried about, and John could probably echo it, is it kind of reminds me in the boom. I hope that some of these guys that make cigars, and not the reputable ones, but some of the guys who are rushing, or I already hear. I was talking to David Garofalo. He thinks that maybe we'll have a lot of wet cigars, a lot of stuff that we saw in the years of '96 and '97, where everybody just started, from clam right to the can. You know what I mean? They'd make cigars, they wouldn't age them, and they'd pack them wet. Maybe crop years that aren't completely fermented, and saying we need to get these cigars out because we don't have any. And at the end, who hurts on that is the consumer and the retailer, and that's something that Perdomo Cigars we're never going to do. Look, at my stage of my career, I'll be quite honest with you. I told my son this, who runs our sales department. I said, Nicholas, the only thing I care about is that our consumers love our products and respect what we do, and that our retailers are very confident in what we make. And Mr. Jonathan over at Two Guys Smoke Shop, gave me the greatest compliment ever. He said, I can always take anybody to the Perdomo case, and I always know that cigar is going to burn, it's going to draw, and regardless of the flavor characteristics, it's going to be consistent from one cigar to the next. And to me, that's the best compliment I can get. And that's really what I work for, is just to satisfy our customers. We sold plenty of cigars in my lifetime. Me and my wife could ride off on the sunset right now, but I love this more than I ever have, and I want to continue growing. and I want to continue growing this for the next generation, my family, and hey, listen, we got Arthur Kemper, who's probably he's gonna be the guy who's gonna be riding, the captain's seat after that, and my son, and we got a lot of guys that are moving up in the chain of command here. I'm not going to be here forever, but I want to leave the ship steered in the right way, like my father left it for me when he passed away. So I'm certainly not want to pass away, but maybe I might want to retire in a little while. So not soon, but maybe in a little while. And maybe me and John can go catch some Alabama games up in Tuscaloosa. So
I'm down anytime. Let me know.
No problem. If it wasn't for this thing of COVID, where you can only have 20,000 people, I had tickets to the Georgia game. I would have more than happy to get you some.
All I'm going to say is that if you can conduct an orchestra, you can definitely get in that stadium.
Trust me, my wife and I are boosters for the team. I can get you anytime you want to go to a game. You let me know. It'd be my pleasure.
And I think with that, I think it's an appropriate time and we get right into our sports segment. Because I know Nick's a sports guy. John, you're a sports guy.
Do we want to do soap review first?
Should we do the soap review first?
Because Nick doesn't know about the soap review. I don't know. I don't think.
Let's save that for. Let's save that for after. We'll leave that as a surprise.
I'm big into hygiene, so I really like soap. So that's a good thing. Okay.
Oh, we take it very serious here at the Smokin Tabacco Show.
Okay.
So yeah, it is time. We're gonna get into that, and it'll be a nice little treat for you, Nick. But it is time for our sports segment, brought to you by Platinum Nova Cigars. Platinum Nova, make Nova big. So John, lately we've been doing a lot of NBA coverage. So I guess really quick before we get into everything else, because I have a couple of sports related questions for Nick. What's going on with the NBA bubble right now? Any highlights? Anything big you want to talk about? Any problems you want to?
So Nick,
about?
I'm a huge basketball fan. I'm a big sports enthusiast in general. Basketball is my favorite sport. On a intellectual level, I just love the game, and I've really loved what the NBA's done with the bubble in terms of the product. I am a little disappointed in the bubble over the last couple weeks, so I'll make it quick. I won't give the NBA more media than it deserves. I will say on an opinion side, it's a heavily black sport. That's just obvious. It's the employees are black, and these issues that we're confronting are issues that affect them directly. So it's obvious that there's going to be a representation of the distaste and change that they want to see. So that really hasn't bothered me. But last week they shut down for a couple days on games to refocus on what agenda they wanted. One is an organization I felt that they, if they were going to go down this path, they should have had that prior to the bubble starting. It was a matter of it being in the middle of the bubble, and we're going to boycott the game. I think that was very damaging to the game of basketball, especially since they have such a great product. The NBA has been so fun to watch in the bubble. The game's better. It's faster. The players aren't traveling, so they're not tired. But they took those 2 days off, and I looked at, if I was a young athlete who had this gigantic public platform to stand on to voice my opinions and views, that I would have wanted to be on television more. Rather than not be on it. So that was something that kind of bothered me last week. Obviously, I missed basketball for a few days, but they're back. The Celtics are on right now. It's tied 95-95 with 4 minutes left in Game 3. Celtics are up 2-0. The big thing that I've been watching in the NBA the last few days have been the Milwaukee Bucks, who are the top seed. They actually are down 2-0 to the Miami Heat. And they had a pretty controversial ending to the game last night that ended on 2 fouls. Giannis Antetokounmpo missed some free throws, and they were down 7. There was essentially almost 11 points scored in 19 seconds, and it ended with a foul with no time on the clock, and Jimmy Butler rolled one around to win the game. But it's been a great product. It's doing well. The political side of it's obviously challenging, and they said that kind of gave me some distaste last week since I've been a big proponent and big supporter of them, promoting their platform. But yeah, we're in the we're one series away from the NBA, the conference finals, and we'll be into the NBA finals. But right now, I've been looking. If you see me churn a little bit, it's because I've been checking the score of the Celtics game. But we're getting down to the end there. But the Celtics are looking great, in my opinion. I think if the Bucks are gone, the Celtics have a good path to the NBA Finals, and they get Gordon Hayward back, who's been injured been sidelined with an ankle injury. They get him back. They have a good chance to, in my opinion, take on the Lakers, which I think are going to win in the West. But yeah, it's been fun and exciting, and I said that's all the time I want to give the NBA. Because if they want to take their time off, I gave them a little bit, and then I'll take my time off here.
So
You did a great job. What else are we going to talk about?
Yeah, we got some sports questions, I guess, but I mean we got Nick here, so let's get to the cigars.
What do you mean? So you just want to blow right past our sports segment? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, we owe it to Nova, right? I guess we owe it to Nova to make it great again. But I mean, I think that's all we need to talk on sports, maybe.
I think John hit everything right on the head, and I think guys want to talk about cigars.
Yeah, there's nothing else left to talk about. We're good.
Okay. Well, all right. So we're going back to cigars. John, I know you've been kind of quiet tonight, and you've been kind of sitting over there watching the game a little bit. But I was curious if you had any particular questions for Nick from your standpoint, just with your position in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, I've the ones that I've asked, I've been kind of listening to the response we've had, and this is probably the longest that we've had a chance to sit down. I mean, it's been great. I've always had a good relationship and a lot of respect for what your company's done, and what you've built over the last, I guess, 28 years now. So you must have something planned coming along for 30. But the interesting thing, you mentioned family. I uniquely work for a company where I'm the non-family member in the family, where I've become part of the family almost. Probably at times they maybe think of me as another child. When they're happy with me, it's different. When they're not happy with me, I'm one of the kids. But how has the transition been for you? Because I would definitely portray you as a type A personality when it comes to your business, very hands-on. How has that been for you working with your children, specifically your son, Nicholas, as he's transitioned into a more substantial role in the company? And do you have any challenges on a personal basis for you in taking a step back and realizing, hey, this is my son at the same time as I'm still trying to mentor into this business?
No, I feel blessed because my son earned this position. It wasn't because he had my last name. Matter of fact, he probably had the toughest position because of my personality and him being my son. He probably had it the roughest. And, when he graduated from college, he never got a desk. He was emptying containers. And my dad always said, you got to walk the walk before you talk the talk. And I've been blessed that my vice president, Arthur Kemper, has been with the company a long time. And I lean heavily on him. The head of our operations, Nelson Cuba, he's been a blessing to the company. He's taken a tremendous amount of pressure off me in Nicaragua. And, he's been my friend since we were 11 years old. So it was one of the toughest hires that I have. And in reality, me backing off a little bit because I don't like to micromanage, because I like to stretch our people and I like to make them better. And I think that if you hover over them, you really can't. But I like to lay back on the side and just on the sidelines and just look at and see what they do. And I have to be very honest with you. I'm really proud of our entire workforce, whether it be our sales department around the country or in Miami and the management team, who've done a great job. My son, for example, 26 years old, designed a stand-up piece for our bags, and it made the company millions of dollars. And it was an idea from a 26-year-old kid, and I remember because I was in the industry at 26, and I think sometimes you have to give other people a shot, and you got to give them a little confidence, and you got to trust in them. So that's a great question, John. And I think that when I was in politics years ago, I got to realize how useless I was as the company's president, and the reason is because I really hired great people. Ronald Reagan, who was a phenomenal president, always gave his blessings to his staff because he hired extremely good people, and you're as good as your people are. So as much as I stay involved in the business, I've been able to lay back a little bit and been able to go out on some trips with my wife. I'm kind of a workaholic, and the guys have done a phenomenal job in the office and on the road. And it's weird we talk about the road. I've been going out recently, and the response has been incredible. People are tired of being tied up in their house, and they're going to events. And Matt, you were over there, and you saw these two guys' events. I mean, they were just completely packed. And Dave's been in the business for 35 years. It was one of the 3 biggest events he ever had in the history of his company. And I think a lot of it had to do with this virus, that people were just tired of being stooped up in their home and wanted to go out and become American and get to enjoy their lives. So it's been good full circle for us. I haven't been in Nicaragua in 7 months. I actually didn't get to see our crop. And, I want to, first time ever in my life that I haven't been able to see a crop, but I haven't been able to, and videos and pictures don't do it. But fortunately, Nelson and I are going to be able to go in October. That's the closest date we can, and going back to Nicaragua. I miss it terribly, as much as I miss all the consumers out there and doing events, because I'm one of these owners that I really enjoy meeting these consumers. I think when you build a business and you see how people have helped you build your business and become so loyal to your brands, I feel inclined that I should try to be around them as much as I can, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for our customers.
Yeah, I think it's really important to point out, for those who don't know Nick.
Hold up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Celtics win with a dunk with a half a second left. Boom. Game over. All right, sorry.
You got it out. You good? You good?
Yeah, Celtics win.
I think it's important to point out that, for those who don't know Nick, maybe you've heard of Perdomo Cigars, or maybe you're a new cigar smoker and you're getting into it, and it's a brand you should, which if that's the case, that's a brand you have to check out. And it's a brand that any new cigar smoker, they ask me, what should I smoke? It's one of the first brands I talk about. I go, Perdomo, right away. And I send them over to Perdomo and I say, don't just smoke one. Smoke this, smoke this, smoke this. Smoke a handful of different things in his portfolio, because they're all going to be good, but they're all going to be different, and it's a really good way for you to get, a reading on what you like, what's on your palate. But I think it's important to note that you don't take your customers for granted, whether it's the retailers or even the consumers. I think that's very admirable. It's important. It's very easy, I would say, for anyone in any industry. When you run a business, you get to a point where you've had so much success, you take that for granted, and you're like, well, the company's big and like it's well known and it's just doing its thing. No, you still run and treat your business like it's day one. You put in the work, you put in the effort, you want to make sure that the quality's there, like you're still trying to prove your name. And I think that's great. You never stopped putting in the work. And I'm not saying that there's cigar brands out there who do, whether there are or not, but there are in any industry, but even in the cigar industry, there's people out there who they got to a certain point, and then they kind of hit that point where it was like, all right, it's kind of doing its thing now. I'm just kind of take my foot off the gas and let the company run itself. No, I mean, you were like, no, keep it going, full steam ahead, and it's great. There's not many companies out there, and there's a lot of great companies, but there's not many companies out there that I just find so fascinating with just how everything you do with the vertical integration, and the employees you have, and the family you have around you. It just seems like such a well-oiled machine that you have, and I think that's a huge part of your success, and it's fantastic. But another question I had for you was, I noticed that you started doing you guys have a YouTube channel. You guys have been really pumping out videos, and there was a video, actually it might have been on Facebook. You did one of the last times you were down in Nicaragua at your factory. You were in the a room with the tobacco. I think it might have been an aging room. You had the tobacco spinning, and it was being misted. So that was inside the factory. It wasn't in a curing barn. That was after the leaves were already brown. They were being rotated and they misted. Can you what exactly was that process that I was watching there?
We were basically casing the wrapper leaves, which is basically wetting and humidifying the wrapper leaves. In the old days, we'd take them under misters and we'd spin them at 360 degrees and we'd shake them so we wouldn't have live water droplets, so we wouldn't have those watermarks on the wrappers. But when you shake them, you break them sometimes. So basically, this is a Ferris wheel process that opens up the leaves like a flower. It turns very slowly, about a mile and a half, 1.1, 1.2 miles per hour. And what it does is a mist of humidity comes up and it builds an updraft and a downdraft. And what it does is it humidifies the tobacco. And we can humidify up to 2 tons of wrappers in about 40 minutes, where if you do it manually, it can take anywhere between 6 and 8 hours. And we get basically minimal breakage, and we get more of a consistent amount of humidity. So when we put those wrappers back into the fermentation piles, or pilons like we call them, we have a much more equal distribution of fermentation, and we get those beautiful casket colors, and we're going to be able to bring up those starches and sugars. And then when those tobaccos ferment, we can put them in bourbon barrels and continue the process before we make it into a finished product. So it's all new technology that works, and some of the technology I use, and some of it I don't use because I don't think it works. But if it works, I'm always open-minded to. And I think that's one of the blessings I had, that I was able to grow up in America and be very open-minded, and being able to adhere and learn new things from different people with new technology.
So
that Ferris wheel process that you talked about, would that be prior to going in the pilones, or would that be a process where you would remove the tobacco from the pilones to slow down the aging and fermentation process and keep them hydrated and humidified, essentially?
It's both, John. It's used for fermentation. It's also used, we actually spin them when we're going to use the tobaccos when they're fermented, to go into the wrapper department to strip the tobaccos and sort them and select them before we're going to make them in the finished cigars. So it's multi-use, and it really works fantastic. And you touch on something earlier, Matthew, where you'd asked, with the company and the size. So someone asked me recently, when did I know I made it? And I told him I told him it was in January this year, and the guy looked at me like I was out of my mind. And I said I was with our vice president. It was a Saturday, and I said, let's grab a couple lawn chairs. And to me, we have 1 million square feet down there, over 1 million square feet on 16 acres, and it's massive. But to me, everything's a compartment. I go into the rolling room. To me, it's a compartment. Packaging, wherever we're going, it's a compartment to me. So I went to the rolling room, and I have an office up on the second floor, and I looked at it, and I said, Arthur, man, this thing is huge. I didn't know how big it was. We got over 300 people making cigars. And then I went to the pre-industry, where we're sorting and selecting fillers, binders, and wrappers. We got 769 women over there sorting and selecting tobacco. And I go, man, this thing is huge. And I went through all the departments. I spent all day Saturday looking at everything, but from afar. And I really got to learn a lot about my company and the size of it. And one of the greatest things, I said, what do you think is the most important thing about our company? And he said, well, the infrastructure, the vertical integration. I said, all that's important, but the most important thing is we don't owe a red cent to anybody. And our company is completely, not only vertical, but completely debt-free. And that has to do with the workforce that we have, and how efficient we've become. And I really believe that quality brings quantity. And it's something that I've taught my people, and I learned that from my father and my mother, for that matter. And I think that's been our exit and our strategy.
So I was about to ask another question. You had mentioned right before that you aged the tobacco in bourbon barrels. Now, is there a particular bourbon barrel that you age them in?
No, I mean, we have different companies. We work with a company called Blanton's. I'm not the biggest bourbon drinker, but we have barrels that say 1792. Pappy Van Winkle's one of them. You can imagine we have over 986 bourbon barrels, and the reason that we use the bourbon barrels is not to infuse bourbon into the tobacco. What it does, it was something my father taught me. The barrels are not varnished, so they breathe, and they use a wood called French oak, and they use an American oak wood, and they're very splintery, porous woods, and the alcohol is cased in the barrels prior to being tapped for a minimum of 1 to 5 years, depending on the bourbon. So the alcohol residue stays there, and when you deposit the tobaccos after fermentation, the free radicals run. They're charred on the inside, which is a charcoal agent. And what it does is it takes out impurities in the rough edges of the tobacco. It caramelizes the sugars for the natural heat through fermentation. It gives them darker cask, and it gives the tobacco better core flavor. It's a pain in the ass because it takes a lot of time to do it, but I think it kind of differentiates some of the tobaccos that we grow from other companies, and it really imparts a really great flavor in the cigar. But it's not the actual bourbon; it's the actual alcohol residue in the barrels. We've been doing this since 1999, and it's been very effective for us. And whether it be a bundled product all the way to our Silvio, every wrapper, depending on the seed variety, is placed in bourbon barrels and aged prior to it going into a finished cigar. And I think it really makes a huge difference for us.
That's a really interesting process. I'm a bourbon guy myself. Actually, tonight I'll share with the viewers. Tonight I'm drinking one of my favorites. If you follow me on social media, you've probably seen me post about it. I think I posted about it recently. I'm drinking the Stag Junior, which is from Buffalo Trace. It's the lesser product of the George T. Stagg from the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, for those who know what that is. It's one of my favorite bourbons. You had mentioned Blanton's, and 1792. Those are all bourbons I drink, especially the Blanton's is another one of my favorites. So I thought that was cool too to hear you say that.
Yeah, the company's called Buffalo Trace that we use.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Buffalo.
there's the
Go ahead.
yeah Buffalo Trace. This is what I'm drinking. I'm drinking Belvini 14 Caribbean cask. It's one of my favorites, and I think it pairs really well with these Perdomo reserves that us three are smoking tonight.
Yeah.
I'm drinking water because I'm still recovering from my weekend at the Tabacco Estate this past week.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was quite a weekend we had. It was a good weekend, and nothing bad happened, but it was mostly wine we drank, and
Yeah.
there was one bottle. So John and I actually went to the liquor store one day and we bought a bottle of Titus Titus Cab, right? And
Titus Cab, yeah.
it was a 2017. It was a 3-liter bottle, and there's a photo of it floating around somewhere on, I think, either my personal pages or maybe the Smokin Tabacco page. But yeah, just a big bottle of wine. We actually, between myself, John, my girlfriend Nicole, we actually finished that bottle in one night. We started around 7 p.m. and around just about 3 in the morning, we had the last glass. That was quite an
It's become
accomplishment.
one with my soul. It's become one with my soul.
That's why John's drinking water to rehydrate.
Yeah.
I mean, Nick, you've been getting these big arms. You know what I mean? I'm known for having some of the biggest arms in the industry. You might be number 2 now. And if I keep drinking that wine and not hydrating properly, I might slip down to number 2. I got to be careful.
Actually, I think there was an episode a few months ago where I think it was back in June. John, I might have this wrong, so you feel free to correct me or call me out, but I'm pretty sure that you had mentioned that you wanted to challenge Nick to an arm wrestle because you guys are both big guys.
I may or may not have said that. And where that came from was last year's PCA show. Someone was walking around while they were setting up the booth, which I commend you on too. Even with the beautiful booth you have now, you always set the booth up, and your team always sets the booth up. You guys are out there for like 10 days, and I know because I always come out a few days early, and when I get there, the Perdomo team is there and working. I mean, last year you were doing sleeveless shirts, and I mean my buddies and I are big lifters, and one of my good friends is a retired football player. And I came back from the show and I was like, there's this guy, man. I go, he's in my head. I just can't stand this right now. I was like, this guy, Nick Perdomo. I mean, he was walking around with his sleeves cut off. I go, and he had triceps. He had the deltoids all set up. I was like, it was impressive. And I go, and he's probably like, he's at least 25, 30 years older than me, maybe. I don't know. I go, so I was a little intimidated. So at that point, I had said, this guy needs to get an arm wrestling match with me at some point in time. All in fun. If I win, I win. If you lose, you lose. But yeah, I was intimidated.
I'm left-handed.
Okay.
But we could do a bench press, a squat, and a deadlift contest.
Deadlift. Okay, I'm in.
Yeah, it was funny. I was talking about this with David Garofalo, and he was like, what's funny? He's like, Nick Perdomo. He's very fascinating. As he gets older, he looks younger. He's like, it's amazing. He goes, that's one guy. He's really aging well, I have to say.
You guys are way too kind. I don't think so. But I'll take it.
But yeah, no, I thought it was interesting about, you mentioned the bourbon barrels, and I wanted to bring that up. And I was curious as to what you were drinking. I was told you are a rum drinker too, and that you especially like to smoke cigars, drink rum, and play dominoes. From what I hear in the grapevine, and to be cautious if I ever have the great opportunity to play dominoes with you, because you are a pretty hardcore dominoes player.
I am. I really enjoy it. But I mostly drink scotches. I drink tequilas, and those are the two. And I'm known to drink a nice dirty martini once in a while too. But those are my 3 favorites. The rum has too much sugar, so I don't want to get it around my waistline. But I do like a good big red cab also. That's for sure. Those are probably my 4 favorites that I like to drink when I smoke a cigar.
Now, when you have said this before, when you go down to the Perdomo factory tour, you have said, a lot of guys, they get excited, they think, well, this is a party fest, and they all just want to drink the whole time. And you said, you really shouldn't. You're going to be out in the fields all day in the heat, and it's not something you want to do on a hangover. Which I've spoken to a couple people who have been, and some of them I know, have been drinking a lot on that tour, and some of them were like, I didn't want to touch anything. I just drank water when I had water because I know bottled water is also kind of a commodity down in Nicaragua, and they're like, yeah, just drink water and get some sleep, and it's all about the factory tour. It's not so much about the party, which I think is important too, especially if you make that trip. I mean, that's a beautiful trip, and I know I was talking about it with a friend who's been, and he was like, yeah, but there's one thing you will do, and you'll probably play dominoes down there, and be careful because they get into it down there in Nicaragua.
Yeah, we have fun tonight. We have rocking chairs. We have our drinks and stuff, but I just don't want anybody to get wasted because I want everybody to be able to see the whole operation and see everything that we do, and I don't want somebody to feel sick in the morning or real woozy. So I always try to tell people to control their drinking patterns when they're at the factory tour.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to give a quick shout out to one of your sales reps, Roy Kirby, who's watched along with us. He's a sales rep in the New England area. We
One
actually,
of the best.
yeah, amazing guy. Love Roy. Every time I see him, it's always awesome. Such an amazing guy. And we actually saw him last Friday at the the New Hampshire Cigar Association golf tournament, and he was there, and John and I were there, and just a little. I'll touch on this a little bit. If you haven't, you can head over to smokintabacco.com or head over to our YouTube channel. There's a video compilation that was made that is up on our page, and it's mostly of John. And I was set up at the LFD booth with John for most of the day, and the night before we were hanging out at my house. We were smoking. We were drinking some wine, and this crazy idea came about, and John decided to run with it. We found this air horn in my garage, and John decided, hey, let's bring this to the golf tournament tomorrow. And I'm like, really, you think so? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And there's a video montage where every group that would come up to tee off at the hole, we were on this beautiful par 3. It was about 170 yards to the pin, and everyone would come up and they'd set up and tee, and John would come right up behind them in the backswing and just blow that horn and just fuck up that shot. And it was fantastic. I was skeptical because I'm like, I don't know, these people might get pissed, and there could be a bad reaction, but everyone was a pretty good sport about it. But the first guy, I remember, John, there was those two guys who were in that car that were actually following us. And
with a Perdomo license plate.
Yes, well, the frame. They had the Perdomo, and he looked at me. He was like, well, we know where they're going. And they were the first group, and they came right up, and John did that to them. The guy just turned around, and he was like, wow, what a prick. But it was a good sport about it. But yeah, no.
One of the best one was there was a professional baseball player, and I won't say his name because he was out there hanging out, relaxing. But I saw him before the game. Before the golf. He's like, "Hey, Johnny, what's up?" And I'm like, "Man," in my head, I'm like, "I am going to get this guy with the horn." You could tell he was a professional because he didn't even react. It was like nothing had happened. And he turned around and he's like, "You can ring that horn every time and it's not going to affect me." I mean, he didn't even flinch. So that was one of the more impressive ones because I thought I was going to get him good, and he was a true professional.
Yeah, that was a great time. I wanted to give a shout out to them and everyone who put that on. That was a great day. Great weather, great people. We saw a lot of fun people came out, and it was a great time. And it's something that I definitely will go back to in the future. And John, thanks for bringing me along again, to hang out for the day and to see everybody. We are getting kind of close towards the end, and John, I think now is the time for you to show Nick about your soap review, what that is, and what exactly it is you do with it.
So, are our friends at McAuliffe? Are our friends at McAuliffe are they in charge of the soap review now?
I don't know if that's official, but I know they had threatened to try and take that away from you, because I know you also wanted to cover that. That's still up for
Hacking
debate.
Gourmet is very much interested in promoting and sponsoring the soap review. But Nick, how this started was during the beginning of the pandemic, when coronavirus was a little bit of a joke for some people and it wasn't real for people. I was doing soap reviews at the airports live on Instagram and Facebook. And it got a little awkward because it was new at first, and I was my intention was to do them live in restrooms. And then you traveling probably understand that in men's restrooms and women's restrooms and in airports, there's mirrors everywhere. And in the men's restroom, a significant portion of those participating in that are standing up behind those mirrors, and you can see them. So the reviews went outside of the bathroom And then essentially it got some good feedback. It was essentially, I took it very serious. People thought it was a joke for some reason. I don't know. But we've carried that on to Smokin Tabacco by popular request. It's not very formal. There is a very informal rating system, a scale of 1 to 10. We do have categories. It gets more formal every week. We have we have craft soaps, which you would find at one of those basin shops. And then we have holiday soaps and boutique soaps, which you'd find at a boutique soap store. But today we have a soap that I would probably put in the holiday category. Holiday not by scent, holiday by when you would buy it. This looks like a stocking stuffer. This is a holiday soap, and this is provided by our friend Agnes, who's a avid listener and watcher of the show. But this one is Hopilico, it's Italian, Hoplicio soap. And this is a car theme, so this is called car repair, garage hand soap. It says Sayan pour Le Mans. So Le Mans, Sayan pour Le Mans. And it's ylang and sandalwood. It's already got a strong scent on the outside of this. It's like parchment paper on the outside here. It's
I think Roy Kirby uses it because he always smells really nice and sandalwoody. You know?
Yeah, sandalwood is one of the top male scents, actually. And it's coincidentally, pure sandalwood oil is one of the more expensive essential oils out there. I know that because my sister's got me tied up in her essential oil campaigns. But this is Hopficio, very nice logo on it, very well made. It's kind of a khaki type color. Ferenzi is on the back. I'm assuming this is the company that makes it. This is a waxy soap. It's not as I scrape it with my finger first. It doesn't scrape off as much as the craft soaps. The craft soaps tend to get in your fingernails, which are really nice. And by the way, as a trick, if you're ever trying to avoid getting your fingernails dirty, get a nice soap when you're doing some lawn work, which I did today. I had to dig up a septic tank. That was exciting. That doesn't happen in Maine. That doesn't happen in Miami. When I'm in Maine, I do things like septic work. But yeah, that's good. So we're all going to take showers and flush the toilets this evening at the Carney Estate. But yeah, that's a trick of the trade there. You just scrape soap into your fingernails. Anybody who works with their hands a lot will tell you that. So you scrape soap into your fingernails and it'll stop the dirt from getting in there. And when you clean it, it cleans underneath your fingernails. So I'd give this on a scent.
Do you live in Miami also, John?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I live downtown Miami. And during the coronavirus, I spend most of the summer up here when I'm traveling. I travel in and out of Maine. That's probably going to change a little bit next year because with the decrease in flights, that's not as convenient to get up here as it was. But I'm working around that. But I do live in Miami as my legal residence. So if the septic issues keep happening, I'll be back down in Miami much quicker. So we've got the soap here. It's nice. I'd give it on a scent here. I'd give it about a 5 out of 10 on the scent. It's not overpowering. Good soap. But we're back here in Maine, so we've got the trusty bucket here with warm water in it. I like to get my hands wet first. This one here, I looked at the chemicals on the back. This is heavily chemical. So there's a lot of sodium, benzoates, and benzodites and different things that I don't know about. So I'm anticipating a more stringent feeling on the hands. That's something you don't get from craft soaps. One thing I am noticing here, there's not a ton of foam on the lather. Those craft soaps we use from the Outlaw Soap Company, I should have my club soaps back in the next couple weeks. That's a club I joined from the Outlaw Soap. That creates a really nice lather, and it's not as astringent, and it's not as slippery. This is one here that you'd see. Boom, you can just look. It's very, very slippery. That doesn't happen with the craft soaps. So there we are. Got a nice lather going. It is lathering, but it's not foamy, so we don't have a lot of bubbles. It's very sticky on the hands. I would say this is probably probably not an oil-based soap. We're looking at probably a mass-produced product here, or a craft product, or boutique product that comes out from a larger manufacturer. But it does say handmade. So we got a good thing here going. Not strong scent. Very generic after the scent does wear off. So that makes me think there's not a lot of essential oils in there. We are getting some bubbles here on the second run. So you can see here on the hands, we do have some bubbles once we get the water in there. We got 3 dips. So Agnes, since you did give this to us, one, I very much appreciate it. I have 2 more soaps I'm going to work with her. that she did give to us, but I'm still going to rate this honestly. Very little scent after. So as I said, not a lot of oils in this. This is meant to be clean. This is meant to get the job done in a very standard manner. So I would say this is a standard soap production, and man, I do like to have a little bit of scent after, but I also don't enjoy having a lot of scent on my hands because I eat with fingers. I eat a lot of steak with fingers, or I do tapas and things like that. So I don't like to be eating what I just wash my hands with. So I do enjoy that side of it, but it's not very strong. It's tough. I gave the Paul Mitchell Tea Tree a pretty high score, and those craft soaps from the Outlaw got a 7.9, which is the highest score that we've given so far. This is nowhere near the Delta baggage claim E50 terminal bathroom, third sink from the left. That's the best airport soap I've ever used. We're gonna go 5.9 on this. 5.9, good soap. It's all over my hands still. It's very slippery. I feel when it dry, it's going to be kind of a tightening feel from it, which is something I don't like. So what did I say, 5.6?
5.9.
5.9.
5.9. Well, what was I thinking? Yeah, we'll go 5.9. First score is what counts. So 5.9. We've got 5.9 on the car repair soap.
John, real quick question, if I could. How do you like Irish Spring soap?
So I almost exclusively used Irish Spring growing up because that's the soap my father used. So I actually, coincidentally, at the Tabacco Estate this weekend, I was spending most of my time in the swimming pool, but one night I decided to bathe, and in the shower there, they had a nice fresh bar of Irish Spring. And it was incredible, and I hadn't used it for a while, and it made me think that it kind of brought me back to what I used to use here at the house because my father used it. So yeah, we will do a soap review on that, and I think in terms of a mass-produced soap, that's going to score probably very highly on my scale because, again, it's not super greasy. The scent of it's amazing. And I feel like they probably use a lot of oils in it that create a really nice aromatic effect. But it's also not overpowering. When it's done, and you just feel actually refreshed. As my hands dry, it's good. As I said, one thing I don't like about some of the oils, even though it gives scent to it, is it's hard to wash off the hands, when it's there and it's scent. So this, on one scale here, the rating's 5.9, but the after effect, like this is a soap that I would like to have and I would like to wash my hands with to not have any hassle after. So that, there's not a lot of thought behind it, but it's a pretty basic standard soap, above average. We give it a 5.9.
And that is the magic of John Carney's soap review that he puts out there every week for us to enjoy. So John, thank you for that again.
I'm learning. This is great.
Yeah, who would have thought that you could have actually learned more about something as basic as washing your hands?
When you get unhappy with the soap production in Nicaragua and decide to start your own soap factory, let me know. We'd be happy to review it here on Smokin Tabacco.
Sounds good. They use a lot of lavender down there, which I absolutely love. I like lavender scented stuff.
Lavender's nice, actually. It's a very refreshing smell. Yeah, I'll give that to you.
I use a lot of lavender and mint. It's great for headaches. If you have a headache after a night of smoking too much, drinking too much, or whatever, pop an Advil and the Tylenol and a little lavender and mint on a cloth, and you carry that around with you. And I do it quite regularly, and now I do it almost every day, whether I have a headache or not, because it just opens up all the olfactory nerves, and it really keeps your head clear. So yeah, lavender and mint are a combination together that I personally enjoy.
Actually, I think it's worth mentioning. So, John, you were on the Cigar Authority last week, and Nick, you'll be on there next week. But this week,
by the way, Matt, if we're going to do soap reviews on here, anything's worth mentioning.
Oh yeah, anything's worth mentioning. So, I think it's funny. This week's episode, I know Dave is advertising that he's going to something about this how to get rid of the smell of cigars, which is going to be a very interesting show to watch, especially how it ties into what we're doing here. So maybe you'll get some shade thrown, maybe you'll get some praise thrown. Who knows about your soap review on here? I know you might have talked about it on the show last week. I don't know.
Brush your teeth with baking soda.
Oh, is that the secret?
Have you ever used activated charcoal on your teeth? Because I've used that for a while, and that's fantastic too.
I bet that's good, but just regular Arm & Hammer baking soda. Make sure you scrub the roof of your mouth and your tongue, and it's over. It's that'll clean you up just really good in the mouth. But the charcoal would definitely work.
I'm thinking a combination of the activated charcoal and the baking soda. I'm going to check the chemical reactions before I put that in my mouth. But
yeah, you'll have pop. Janine said you'll have pop rocks in your mouth.
yeah, exactly.
So we are getting towards the end of the show. I have a couple of quick announcements. We're going to turn it over to Nick, and then we'll close out the show. First things first, the massive giveaway that we have been talking about for a while is now live on all of the social media pages on the website, smokintabacco.com. You can find it. There's a lot of stuff in there. I'll run through it quickly. We're going to announce the winner next week on the show. But inside that giveaway is, from our friends at the Carney Estate, I'll say. There is 10 Andalusian Bulls. There's an Andalusian Bull ashtray. There's 2 McAuliffe Herencia Habano Toros, 2 Nova Platinum Batch Robustos. There's Perdomo 20th Sun-Grown Toro, Perdomo Habano Sun-Grown Toro. There's an Opus X Perfection number 2, an Arturo Fuente Añejo number 60, HVC Black Friday, a Christoph Pissed Off Firecracker, and then we have 2 bottles of bourbon in there. We have a bottle of Eagle Rare and a bottle of the Henry McKenna 10-year bottled in bond, as well as a custom-made Smokin Tabacco wooden coaster / cigar rest that was made by my friend Lee at Regal Street Wood Shop. And the best thing that's going to come out of this is the winner of this giveaway is actually going to be a guest on our show. At your convenience, we'll plan that out, whoever the winner is. And we're going to pick that winner next week. We'll announce it on the show, so stay tuned. Watch the show next week. To find out if you win. We'll also post it on social media and on the website. We'll send an email blast out. So that's what's going on with that. It is live. We were supposed to have some more items in there. Unfortunately, we just weren't able to get those in time. So if we get those, we will do a separate giveaway with those. But we appreciate everyone. I have to say, as I said before, it's our 1-year anniversary this week. So I appreciate everyone who's come out and supported. Watched the show, follow us online. Written into us, everything like that. Just a huge thanks. It's been 1 year. We've accomplished so much in 1 year. I can't wait to see, where Smokin Tabacco goes in the next 5 years. It's definitely going to be interesting. So thank you guys so much for being such a support. Nick, again, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. We appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy. I can't say enough. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for everything you've done in the industry. Thank you for making beautiful cigars that we all love and enjoy so much. And I mean that a lot. They're fantastic. And before we close out the show, I want to turn it over to you. If there's anything that you wanted to say, whatsoever, I'll turn that over to you.
Well, first of all, congratulations on your anniversary. It's a big thing. It's nice you can be able to work with John, who knows a ton about cigars too. And I just like to thank you guys for having me on the show, and like to thank all the consumers out there that are listening and retailers out there listening. It's I love doing these things, since haven't been able to go out on the road. It's these Zooms and Skypes and Facebook Live things are really important for all of us. And I feel that I can get together and talk to guys who love cigars like I do, and be able to talk to all the consumers out there that have supported us for a lot of years. So it was really my pleasure, and thank you both for having me on the show. It was really an honor.
And thank you for joining us. And really, it's fantastic to have you on the show. John, is there anything you wanted to close out with?
Yeah, Nick, first of all, thank you for coming on the show. I've been smoking your cigars since I've been smoking. The Lot 23s were my go-to when I was in college. It was a part of everything I did on the golf course when I was skipping grad school classes. So you're a big part of that. There was many a time I called in sick with a Lot 23 ML. So yeah, appreciate you coming on the show. Appreciate what you've done for the industry and what you continue to do, and how you've represented the industry and your family proudly with that. Second, we have Hacking Gourmet on Monday. We're back with a live episode. It's called Return. The Wood Butcher Strikes Back. We'll have Aaron Smith, the Wood Butcher, live on the show. And also on Monday, we will be officially announcing the La Flor Dominicana Gourmet Smoke Sessions presented by Hacking Gourmet, which will be going live in September this month. On the 24th, we'll have a soft presentation of that, and then we'll be launching that program nationwide. And that's a hybrid in-person virtual cigar, steak, and woodworking, rum pairing concept that we'll be doing live broadcasts on. And one cool thing that happened today, a dream of mine happened. I've been waiting for 6 months to get a meat purveyor to be part of what we're doing. And Meat and Bone from Miami, Florida, is joining us enthusiastically as part of this program. So we're looking forward to bringing steak experiences, cigar experiences, hopefully not this fire pit. Good grief. To all of the viewers out there. So Hacking Gourmet, Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern. Facebook Live.
Well, we look forward to that. It's always, a pleasure to watch the guys over at Hacking Gourmet. So, guys, thank you for watching. Giveaways online. Check it out. We'll announce it. Nick, don't go anywhere. We're going to talk to you after the show just in a sec. And that is it. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.